And these are typically individuals not working in the front desk, although they may sit in at the front desk during the lunch hour. But these are typically people that work in a department and support an executive and leadership team. For example, I've been using CFOs. So a CFO usually will have an executive assistant, and that assistant will answer their phone, often read their email, could also play an assistant role to other leaders, managers in the finance department, such as the VP of Finance, Director of Finance. And this person can also support from an administrative role employees in the department. So financial analysts would go to the executive assistant to the CFO for maybe ordering office supplies or whatnot. Now, the reason why I separate these out is that you often think of gatekeepers as an obstacle, but executive assistants could actually be an ally and a very, very productive and valuable resource that you can leverage. And the reason why is because executive assistants usually have very deep knowledge of what is going on in the organization. Not just who is who in terms of title, but they often sit in meetings and take notes and are on conference calls and know about initiatives and pain points and problems and challenges. And what that means is that not only are there situations where you can get a lot out of an executive assistant if you try to flip it, treat them like a prospect, but there are even times where you might want to just start with treating an executive assistant like the prospect. Once you end up on the phone with them, just try to have a short Q&A, quick call with them to learn more before even trying to get to the prospect, because they have so much valuable knowledge. The other thing is that this is a usually more sophisticated type of individual, meaning they've been with the company for a while, they've worked their way up, and that means a couple things. One is they'll have a better composure with dealing with you, and they might listen to you a little more. So when they definitely aren't going to just let frivolous, pesky sales calls, cold calls, salespeople through to bug people in their organization, but they may actually just be more inquisitive about who you are before letting you go. And if you do try to make your case by educating them, then they might hear you out. And before screening you out, they might make a decision on, who you are and if you're worth letting in, which is another reason why it's really important to have a good sales message, communicate clearly, and educate the person on who you are, why it would make sense for the person they're playing a gatekeeper for to try to let you in. When you treat this person like a prospect, these can be, as I mentioned, very productive conversations. Also, when you treat this gatekeeper like a prospect, you'll build more rapport because sometimes they may feel like they're in a lower level in the organization because they're an executive assistant. But when you show them respect, where you understand the value that they have and you treat them like a prospect, they will really appreciate that. And so when you talk to them and you ask them questions, you might actually find out very valuable information in the form of they may give you information that allows you to disqualify the prospect from someone you should waste your valuable time calling. For example, let's say you solve some particular problem and you start talking to the executive assistant about it, you identify it's a problem they've already fixed. Well, that's great. Move on. You can save your time and go find a different prospect that still has that problem. The executive assistant might also find a better person for you to talk to, meaning you might have the CFO down and that's who you're trying to reach. But when talking to the executive assistant, you find out that the way their organization is structured, it's actually a different person that you're going to want to talk to, and they could save you a whole bunch of time and get you going in the right direction. So executive assistants are very valuable resources that you can and should leverage and that you will encounter when you're cold calling.